Wednesday night notification crew. If you're here, let me know. Leave a little comment here in this link below. We have very, very special guests here tonight on Text to the Stars on Double D Guitar. Grover Washington III, G3, is up in the house tonight. Well, up in his house, doing the whole virtual thing. So yeah, I see a couple of people here tonight already. That's nice. Nice to see you guys. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to my Wednesday night Text to the Stars, where I get to chat with some amazing people that I've been lucky to cross paths with. Tonight, if that name sounds familiar to you, and if you're here just to watch just the two of us here, then you might understand why this has a special place in my heart tonight. Because what I like to do is talk to us technicians and say, hey, what's going on? You know, how on earth did you get? Look at that. There we are together now. I finally know what I'm doing here. Say, how did you get from music into the technology world and the engineering world? Yeah, so as I'm talking about, you know, your musical heritage and your family, my father here says hello. And Gail, one of our very regular viewers here, says hello. How you doing, folks? Good to see you guys. Juliet's here. She says hi to you there, Grover. She's sending you some lovey eyes, it looks like.
Cool.
So, I kind of don't know where to begin with you, because my normal beginning would be, where did music hit you, and what was your first instrument? Those kind of typical questions that you ask a musician. Kind of.
Lost you, Dave.
Oh no, you've lost me here. Oh yeah, it looks like you're frozen on my end here.
It might be me.
It might be you. We've had just anybody watching. We have had some technical issues getting this thing going here tonight. Between having to restart a number of modems and getting ourselves reconnected, I'm surprised I managed to hit the broadcast button. You know, I might have to remove you for a second and have you just jump back in. I don't even think I hear you. So, well, hello, folks. It's me again. I can message him here just real quick to make sure, but he'll just jump back in. We have really been having some issues getting this stream going tonight. My entire business modem went kaput for the upload, and yeah, here he is. He's come right back. And so I had to run around and go restart that a good few hundred yards away on the other side of property. And but this is destined to happen. We will make this happen. And if there's a problem, if there's too much of a problem, you will be my next guest, and we will reschedule accordingly. Just anybody that's watching next Wednesday, there won't be a Text to the Stars stream. We're going to have a break here. But then I'll pick back up the following Wednesday. But okay. Looks like you're good now, and I'm good now. And we have our guests here. So, Grover, welcome. It's good to see you.
Great to see you, Dave. It's been a while.
It has been a while. And we didn't really get a chance to catch up too much because we're getting busy, and I know weekend time is precious. So this is going to be a fun. Everybody's going to kind of be able to witness our catch up as we talk about this. So I want to start off in still the same manner that I generally like to start off, and say, do you remember a moment, like a song, like your first song that you heard that really kind of hit you?
Well, I don't think it was particularly a song. It was an experience.
Okay.
Growing up, there was always, my pop would always rehearse at home.
Mm-hmm.
Band members would come over and they'd play,
Whoops, wrong
wherever. They used to set up on the street outside my house in West Philly on Robinson Street and just play.
Okay.
But I think my first experience when I knew that I was in all the way, my pop took me to see Earth, Wind, and Fire at the Spectrum.
Oh, okay.
And this had to be early, mid 70s. and I got to go on stage, I got to go backstage, and I watched the show from the press box. But all the explosions and all the pyrotechnics and all the lights and the set. I mean, they had a drum set that went up in the air and flipped over upside down and came. It was crazy.
Really, they did
Oh,
well before Tommy Lee was doing it.
Oh yeah.
Nice, good to know. Okay, cool.
I think those guys were doing it for a long time, but
That's awesome.
like I remember watching that show and going, "This is it.
Right.
That looks like so much fun."
Uh-huh.
And then, growing up, I was always around when my father would do shows. I'd be around the engineers and the crew guys. We have this running joke that I was literally raised by roadies. Donnie Wyatt, Mike Lafferty, Paul Silverthorne, Craig, Melvin Shepard, and Marty Garcia. Marty Garcia was my pop's monitor engineer. So, hanging out with those guys all day on a show and, being that they used to call me Kato.
Okay, that was your nickname back then?
You remember Pink Panther?
Uh-huh. Oh yes.
Kato, not now, Kato.
Not now, Kato.
I was constantly asking questions and asking and bugging people and, so, and then, I studied music. I took guitar.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Hated it.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. I just, I didn't take naturally to many instruments. I played the piano for the longest, and I just, I did recitals and, I was very, very stage shy, so I couldn't perform in front of crowds. So anyway, but, those experiences, being around Dad, being around all his friends, all his musicians, I was like, yeah, I think I need to be in this industry. I think this is going to work for me.
So you immediately then kind of saw an industry opening. You saw the industry side as opposed to the music side that so many of us kind of like, we found, like myself, I found music and the industry through my love of my instrument and then just kind of falling into it, and this path leads you there. You actually kind of already had music around you so much that when you saw that show and all of the hoopla that went into it, that's what struck you at a young age.
Right. All the technology, all the flashing lights, all the big bangs and the sparkles and all that. That was, that was kind of like, ooh, like my pop did shows, but it was,
it was not like that.
Some lights, red, blue, green, amber, and but nothing like what Earth, Wind, and Fire was doing. I just thought I would love to be the guy to work that equipment to make those things happen.
Okay.
So that's kind of what set it up for me.
That's really cool. That's a really interesting side. So, because I mean, it just almost didn't fall into your lap, but the idea fell right into your lap at an early age, and it just bonded with you.
Yeah.
And you were there for it, pretty much through the growing up.
It was very hard not to be involved in some kind of way when, your father's a musician, your uncles were musicians, he had his own band, so it was always musicians around. The crew guys were always around. It was like, and my father and mother, my mother was his business partner. They ran a tight ship, but it was like an extended family, like, and that experience in particular is what, here's all these people from different walks of life, different backgrounds getting together, putting on shows, that whole family dynamic was really cool too.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it does seem, well, like the Bill Withers relationship and that kind of open musical family that they had established. Were you around for that? That's part of what you were seeing happen.
Yeah, I was around for that, and so the story goes that Pop was looking for a song, a label, and management was telling me he had to do something with a vocal, and here comes this song written by Ralph McDonald, William Saltner, and Bill Eaton, who wrote a lot of his other material as well. And the song was good. We're like, we need to add a vocal on this. So he called Bill Withers. My understanding, and I'm sure my mother will challenge this, but my understanding was that in order for Bill to do the song, he wanted it, publishing. It was a what do they call it?
Like points. He wanted a certain amount of
and he wanted part ownership of writing the song. He changed a few words, and that pushed my father out of the writer's seat for that song.
Wow, interesting. I did not know that.
And they both published it. They both put it out on each of their albums. So while
right.
Withers is the singer, and he gets most of the accolade. He's got part of the writers with William Salters, Bill Eaton, and Ralph McDonald, and so it's not really his song, so to speak.
Well, right. So I guess it's an identifier for people.
I think Mr. Magic was a bigger identifier.
Yeah, that's okay. Now let's talk about that for a second.
That was really the song that it was an instrumental. It was funky. It was jazzy.
Where he was.
Yeah, and that was really what set the tempo. But just the two of us, because it was a vocal song, got a whole lot more attention.
Right. Wow, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm loving all the like TikTok. Everybody on TikTok is doing their version of just the two of us, and Bill Withers' granddaughter got on, I think it was IG or TikTok, and said, everybody, listen, this is my grandfather's song, and that was cool, to see that. So,
well, and I've always thought that one of the most defining elements of that song was the sound of that saxophone.
I agree.
I have to say myself that it sets up the voice, is how I see that, and how I've always kind of seen that part of that song. If that saxophone wasn't there, it just would be a completely different entity.
Lost you there, buddy.
Oh man, yeah. I'm wondering if I think that's on your end again.
We're back.
Yeah, we're having once again. If you have to jump, do it and then come right back.
All right, be right back.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad. So for those of you that don't know, or that haven't been following along, so Grover's journey then leads him to down a pretty incredible musical path. There, and he is back here. Let's see, once I'm allowed to add him. His musical journey then, so your musical journey as a listener and almost like that band member, like you were saying, being Kato, how did that translate for you? Like as far as associating like with other techs and everything as you got older? Because
most of the techs was around where my pops tech, so they had to do what they were doing and get it done, and also do what they did. And I was just trying to fit, I was the boss's son. So, it was like, I probably deserved a few more butt whoopings than I got.
Well, I mean, as you got older, you now then could take this relationship though, and the ability to kind of talk and know what the interaction was. Well, I can see that artist is happy. This guy did the right thing. It sounds like this.
Right.
How did you ever evolve like within that concept? Did you ever think about how that applied? Is that a tool you ever really kind of said, man, I'm glad I had oh man,
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Well, I just mean as since you were so young and already kind of growing up with the technicians around you, then when you later on became a tech, when you were on stage engineering for artists,
right?
What did you ever feel that kind of a connection? Did you ever look back and say, man, I was a kid and I remember when I learned this lesson or I learned that lesson, and that I now, as an older, moving on within this business, was there ever kind of a moment like that or any kind of transition for you where you said, oh yeah, it's really been helpful for me to have grown up around all these techniques? Or were you just like, no, I just went with it?
I mean, I knew them all. I grew up with them all, and I did my thing on. I just, like I said, Donnie Wyatt, Jim Lafferty, Mike Lafferty, sorry, Marty Garcia, Paul Silverthorne, like those were the guys. Those guys are phenomenal guys at what they do, and they made me, appreciate the hard work and getting it done. And
Right.
I would remember at, I think when I first made it, I don't remember what gig it was, but the first time I was on a gig as an A1 doing monitors, and Marty Garcia shows up to repair the artist's ears. And I guess he was asked, okay, well, who's the engineer? And they're like, oh, it's this guy in Grover. He's like, G3. And
so he knew
I
you.
felt like I had reached a level of, achievement. Here's a guy that used to, come on, man, don't bother me. Or he would, answer any question I had, depending on the situation.
Right.
Of somebody I respected and looked up to, especially because he was an engineer. And, I don't know if he knows, he showed me a lot, he taught me a lot, and I just absorbed it like a sponge.
I think that's kind of what I'm getting at is so after your influence period, or after you're being influenced by being or just growing up around these greats, these engineers that are doing it, and then once you moved into that position, there must have been like at least a couple of lessons that you said, oh yeah, okay. And I don't necessarily mean, yeah, fix the mid-range, do this or that, but just you're interacting with other technicians and other artists. Now that you've moved on and you're outside of your family's camp, you go and you're doing engineering on your own. What was that very first gig for you where you actually had none of the engineers that you kind of grew up with there, and you were like, I am myself, Grover, on this gig doing what I do?
So
you remember that moment for you?
Well, from 92 to 2000, I lived in LA. I moved out to LA in 92, okay. Packed everything up in a truck, and my dog drove across the country and said, I'm going to do me now.
I'm doing this now. Right.
I'm out.
Right. Okay.
The first job I got was, I got hooked up. Got started in the mailroom at a talent agency.
Okay.
Worked there 3 years, made it to a desk as a junior agent, and then was like burnout.
Right.
Followed an ad for a AV company hiring A1s and A2s.
Mm-hmm.
Started with that right away.
Ding, ding, ding.
I was doing, but it was talking heads. I used to stay in Bellevue, Washington, near the Microsoft campus, and just do, whatever they had going on for this company, Staging Techniques. And then I started hanging out with friends at SIR and Center Staging. And I remember, I would set up. I wasn't officially an employee there. I would just hang out in the lobby, and I knew a lot of the musicians, a lot of the production people. So I would just hang out and wait until somebody said, "Hey, can somebody come in here and fix these monitors?" And I'd be like, "Cha-ching!" Go in, fix it, and then leave. And they'd be like, "Where are you going?" Like, I don't work here. I'm just helping y'all out. Well, let's talk. Did that a lot. I Deborah Cox. There's a lot of artists back then. Kenny Lattimore. So throughout that time for a couple of years, I would just, I got a couple gigs. SIR even hired me a couple times to do some live gigs. But, that's how I started picking up work. And that's how I started, getting my name out there.
Right.
And I was working. So as a freelance, I was getting. There was a MD at the time named Bruce Sterling. If anybody knows Bruce Sterling, you already know. Uh, uh, but he somehow had all these connections. He would somehow get the labels to give him money to put together a band for an artist that was about to tour.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And once that band was put together and go into rehearsals, obviously they needed someone to do monitors. So he would call me a lot, and he put me on a lot of gigs. And like I said, Deborah Cox was one. I don't have my, memory's bad. But he put me on the Pink gig.
Uh-huh.
And that was a very wonderful time.
As a monitor engineer?
Yeah.
As monitors, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference? Do you ever wander into the front of house world? Because all I've known you as is pretty much a monitor.
Yeah, I mean that's what I came up on.
Right.
That's what I know the best. But it's many mixes as compared to one mix.
Right.
Which the importance of each is very significant but different.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, in the last few years, I've been branching out and trying to do more front of house stuff.
Okay.
But my I wouldn't even say my better quality is my better skill is monitors.
And also, I would think also for you, it's almost home, because having grown up in the environment in a musical family around the technicians, watching the interaction, that makes sense to you. It's natural. It's almost like you don't think about it. It's
right.
It's the tool that you don't even realize you have most of the time, I would think. And I would think in that monitor position, it's got to be just a natural kind of thing that you don't have to think about. Has there?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? You moving on from artist to artist, what that's like for you?
So like I said, I did study a lot of music when I was younger. I had a home studio, so to speak, and I would work on stuff. I DJ'd in the clubs for a while before I moved to California.
Okay.
I definitely had an appreciation for music, all music. It just all the elements, of what I was surrounded by just, took over. I think the best thing was that I used to, because I have some musical skill, I think like a musician would.
Yeah.
If I was playing keys, what would I want to hear in my keys?
What would you want to hear? Yep.
And I have some good relationships with a lot of musicians that still tour right now, and knowing what I know and knowing who I know, some of these guys, they don't even have to say it. I could just dial it in and we're good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that relationship that I have with the musicians on the stage and, off the stage helps immensely.
Yeah, definitely. It's an unstated thing, I think, that just kind of goes without saying. Like you are on that stage with the members, and then you walk off. You're pretty much the sixth, the seventh, whatever. You're that extra guy in that band.
Extra, and it's very challenging. It's multitasking at its finest.
Yeah.
But I love what I do.
Now, as speaking of multitasking, so this is what I was going to kind of get to. Was there a time for you where you were mixing and you were mixing monitors, and then you had to kind of, maybe stage manage, do some production managing, start dipping into those kind of piles? How did that work out for you? And would you go that route, or have you been able to fortunate enough to be able to just kind of stick to what you're doing?
Well, most of my gigs have been gospel, R&B, or hip hop. I've had a few pop gigs. I've had a few, rock gigs. But budgets on R&B, gospel, and hip hop are typically lower than on, the A1 circuit, the Pinks, the Rolling Stones, so they pay you, but you got to wear at least 2 hats.
At least, right? Okay, gotcha. Yep.
So what was happening was that as I started working for Glenn Lewis, who was from Philly by way of Toronto, and then Music Soul Child, and was getting calls from Erykah Badu, and with those gigs, it was like one of the engineers or the lighting guy was also the production manager.
Okay.
So
Right.
in most cases, here I am advancing all the gigs, advancing all the gear, day of show. I'm the point person. I'm making sure all the backlines set up. I'm making sure the audio rigs, front of house and monitors are right, and I'm dialing in a mix. So, it's stressful, very stressful. But sometimes it's something that needs to be done. I would love nowadays to get a gig where all I do is just mix. I don't want to know about a guitar amp that's blown and getting its new one shipped in for the next gig or I just want to mix.
Yep.
But it's hard to find gigs like that nowadays.
That's what I was going to say.
Unless you're Gordon Mack or Kenny Nash or
where the budget is just there for a
well,
lot.
they got those gigs they can do that.
I'm looking at some of your pictures here that you've sent along. You've got I love, first off, I love this one. This one of you and your dad. That's
so
your
that was taken a couple days before Christmas, 1998.
Okay.
That was the last Christmas we spent together.
Yeah.
Following Christmas, he passed.
Yeah, he we got here we go. We got somebody saying a little something here for you. Gear Junkies is saying, hey, and thanks for sharing the lore and the passion for the gear. Gear Junkies doesn't have too much time tonight, so he's going to jump out and say hey there and catch
guys. Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and Alicia, of course, she had said to you, "Can you take care of her front of house?" Oh boy, that's trouble. That just sounds like trouble.
Yeah.
Gosh, this picture. Well, I wanted. It's
man,
a little blurry. Yeah, but it's a really. I love the vibe of it. Was this a tour that you did?
So I was on tour with Kirk Franklin.
Okay.
We did a show in New Orleans. Can't remember. It was either for Jazz Fest or it was for the tour that we were on that happened to be. I don't remember exactly, but after we did our performance, one of the background singers for Kirk Franklin set up this after party, a live performance after party at some club, not on Bourbon Street, but on what's the other hot street in New Orleans? Anyway, so that was the after party. So you have members from Kirk Franklin's band that was a picture of Mono Neon, who is one of the, I think he's one of the greatest contemporary bass players there is. I mean, Cat played.
I'm not familiar with him, so I'll have to give him.
Plays anything. He plays with like, he played with Badu. He played with Prince. He played with, he's and people don't, he's not like a household name.
Yeah, that's for me not to know about him and have him had played with that many people. That's
he's got his own style. He can play jazz. He can play anything. He's a virtuoso. But that was at the after party that night in New Orleans. That was probably like 2 a.m.
that's what that vibe has, and then you can run. Next thing you know, you're clean cut. You're ready to go. You're professional and ready.
Right.
Leaning on the console, saying, "Yes, sir. What can I get you?"
That picture, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time I went to Japan with Kirk Franklin.
Okay.
and we were doing the Billboard Live clubs.
Well, look at me. I'm picking the whole theme right now on your tour picks. I'm actually getting lucky and kind of keeping within the theme. That's good. Japan. What did you think of Japan? Right, Japan's come up now a few times on these
And
streams.
I as a child, I can't remember exactly what age, but I went to Japan with my parents,
Uh-huh.
12, 13,
Wow.
14 maybe. And of course, that time when I was that age, that's when all the electronics and video games and computers were coming out.
Right.
And I'm a geek at heart, so I was geeking out, going in all these electronic stores,
Uh,
spending all kind of money on stuff I didn't need but wanted. It was incredible, and the people they're so polite,
that's amazing.
so clean over there.
Hmm.
Like, you just can't imagine. The food. I love Japanese cuisine, but you can get anything over there. But
Yeah.
I'm a traditionalist. I like, give me sushi, give me all shabu shabu, give me all anything Japanese, I'll eat it.
It's so good over there too. It's the best.
I met a few female friends that were really nice, but I've had many experiences over there, and was going back like, it's 2-3 times a year.
Wow, really? Okay, so not only did you get to see it as a kid, but then you got to be able to make it part of a lot of the tours.
Oh yeah.
It's always nice when you see Japan on the tour book. You're like, oh yeah, that's gonna be fun right there. Good.
Arigato gozaimasu.
And then here you are with Kilo Saunders.
Kilo Saunders so I mentioned Gordon Mack and Kenny Nash before. Kilo Saunders he's been a staple in Philly. He works with Jazzy Jeff. He's one of the best engineers that I know of. He does front of house for Jay-Z. He does front of house for D'Angelo. His resume makes mine look like, like him,
right, yeah.
and Kenny and Gordon Mack, and also Martin Thomas, who's a lighting director. Like, those are my guys. Those are my peers. Those are the guys I always, look up to and look out for. And when I get on a gig with them, I'm like,
They kind of keep you humble in that sense. It sounds like
guys are so good at what they do. I'm just trying to keep up.
Right, and that's nice to have. It's good to have because when you do start with, that's a really good point you're bringing up here. Because it's tough not to let something like the name that you're working with kind of go to your head in a sense, and you see that with people, and you see it happen to people before they've even ever worked with the name.
Right,
and it's hard to tell somebody, don't do that. You don't do that. You are you, and you are working for that person, and there's a separation there, and you've probably been able, in your own little way, been able to move through that in a different way, just having the musical experience.
Hang on 1 second.
Oh yeah. Oh, we love dogs here on this channel. It's okay. Yeah, but let's get a cameo.
Come on, come here.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have a bully breed. It's a 60-pound lap dog.
Nice.
His name is Jasper.
What's up, Jasper?
Yeah, he's a very spoiled dog.
That's the best way to have a dog.
Yeah, so
I'm lucky my page is quiet tonight. She's now that I've said her name, she's gonna come walking over here. But it's let's see. We got Gear Junkie talking about so he's getting into home recording. Do you do much home recording? Because some of the standards, some of the basics, like he's throwing down the SM57, the Art Tube, Mic Pre. That's good. All good starting points that Gear Junkie has going. Gear Junkie, thanks for being here and checking it out.
Thank you, Gear
the home world really is something. This past year, especially, you get a little something going on at home right now, or
just I really. Well, come on, man, stop. Quiet. I have a really cool loft in this really cool building. Um, I'm in a 1,100 square foot unit. There's another unit next door that's 1,500 square feet, and I'm really trying to build you know, I'm looking for investors if anybody's interested to uh, obtain the other space, do the renovations that need to be done, put a small sound stage, a podcast type watch party, listening party, band rehearsals, recording and stuff, and of course still the logistics, we do in production for shows. So we're excited. We need some gear, but basically I've been just messing around with the new MPC software. I got a little mini MK2 keyboard with pads on. I'm just messing around right now.
I've got my one of my minis. I got the mini play over here. It's it's good stuff. Yep, there you go.
But,
it's amazing the tech out these days, right? I mean,
crazy.
It's insane. Yeah.
I mean, I come from the days when MIDI first started.
Right.
And how to, set up the MIDI rigs with the switchers and all that stuff. And I now it's all digital. Everything's digital now. It's great, but at the same time,
yeah,
it makes musicians and producers and engineers who aren't that good, the technology helps them be a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing because you want people to be in the technology, but it's a bad thing because, our secrets are getting out.
Well, but the thing is, and now people kind of have brought this up to me a couple of times, and I still will stand by the fact that you're gonna shine if you're good. If you're an artist and everything works out right and you get a good recording, you're gonna shine,
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same can stand for a good recording studio or a good monitor engineer. At this point, a lot of bands can go out there and hit the play on their computer and have it running everything, but they're going to maybe they're going to miss that interaction they have with you, and then they're going to go, you know what, I want that, because there are times where I need to turn around and change something and I can't because now I'm playing or this is going. And so that whole the defeat of technology and still needing this artistic interaction that you're talking about and that engineers do have, especially when you get to the microscopic levels of a recording studio.
Right.
You're putting your fingerprint on something, And sometimes it's good to have a sound, even though you want transparency. Sometimes it's good to have that character.
Yeah, you definitely you always want to do something that sets yourself apart from other engineers, whether it be your quote unquote bedside manner, how you interact with the band, or how you interact with the client. It could be your knowledge of the gear. It could be your selection of the gear. It could be your connection with whoever's paying the bills for the studio.
Mm-hmm.
There's some and whatever nuance there is for someone to shine, you got to run with it.
And did you find that kind of a crossover tough when you had to all of a sudden detach from the artistic side and you had to start dealing with hotel rooms and did that weigh on you in ways?
Well, Dave, we go back, and I used to have a fairly short temper.
I mean, you could be talking about me.
Well,
I'm there with you.
It's frustrating when you have to take off one hat and put another one on and switch them back like simultaneously. It's you're trying to arrange with the bus driver to get a ride back to the hotel while the drummer is complaining that the kick drum is too snappy in his ears. It's like, where do you
Right, and the pepperoni on the pizza was too cold last night.
And what's the crew meal tonight?
Right, it's a tough thing because as I feel like for you, there's an artsy side, an artistic. There's an attachment to your projects for you. Not everybody feels that. And you know, and I might be reading it wrong, but I feel like you said, you go into a lot of your um you're kind of known for being within the genre, you know, hip hop, there's R&B, there's Hall and Oates. I mean, they cover a lot of that spectrum in their own way, of course. And that interaction for you, you know, moving from the variety of artists that you go through, even within that spectrum,
Right,
you're
right.
gonna have different personalities, you
Oh,
know,
definitely.
different wants and different
Yeah,
needs on
that
all
was
levels.
probably one of the most challenging gigs I've had in Monitor World.
I can
Um,
imagine.
you know, you know, I was thrown into a situation replacing a guy that had been there for years. With
Oh, right. You came in right after Jack
I
passed.
came in right
You
after,
were Jack's direct replacement, which is
and that's huge shoes to fill. I mean,
huge. Jack was very influential in his and yeah, and his thing, his connection with the band is like what I'm talking about. He was that guy. They looked and he moved. You know,
I was developing a relationship like that with the band, but not everybody on stage uh, 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 heard things or saw things
the same way. Yeah,
the
yeah.
same way. And when the guy signing the check isn't happy, no matter what frequency it is, you can't find.
Yeah, yep, yep.
You know,
And that's part of it. And you know, sometimes you just go, okay, what's the next gig then? You know, and then here we go. And then next thing you know,
oh well, hey,
you know, you
there
take the
are
good
some
with the
perks.
bad,
There
right?
are some perks to the gig. That was
There,
quite a long time ago.
what's going on here?
Uh, I work. I freelance for a company called Spider Ranch. It's based out of Sacramento, California. Uh,
Okay,
Alex Moran has a this guy Alex Moran. He has a what is the Italian rig? I can't even think of the name of him. Drawing a blank. He has a very high end PA,
okay, gotcha.
and he has he has all the gear. And I got a gig with him through an ex-employee of his who was from Philly that said, hey man, our systems tech checked out. He left, and it's your show tonight. I was mixing Tina Marie, so I went in early, teched my whole rig, put it together, and mixed the show for the opening act and for Tina. And Alex was, obviously impressed. He started calling me for gigs. So that gig with those lovely ladies was a EDM festival in Mount Hood, Oregon, or something like that out there in Oregon. It was like a
Okay.
4-day thing. It was nutty, but that
I
was
thought,
like,
I thought those were the stage hands. I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, they did lift some things at some point.
I bet
So,
things were risen.
but no, and he called me for this festival, and it was, he's entrusted me with a lot of gigs that other monitor engineers might have turned down.
Turned down. Um, Now here's somebody. You're messing
That's
with the
my man.
juice
That's
here.
the juice, baby.
That's the juice.
That's the
He's just a
juice.
squirrel. No, that's a great shot. Now, I grew up listening to that song and knowing the juice and turning people on to them and to that particular song and just saying like, no, there's a vibe there that you have to listen to that a couple of times to really understand.
Right. And I still
So
listen to it and catch things that
that I know, right? It's still a classic. You can still listen to it to this day. I love that song. What? So how'd you end up running into the juice here?
So a friend of mine, an artist that I've been working with actually in the management capacity, Mark Baxter, invited me to a networking event. There were
Oh,
Juice Jones put out a book. His my friend I mentioned, Rick Watson, who writes plays. He writes like the Tyler Perry type plays that tour. And so I went. I networked. Mark Baxter performed the song. And Orange Juice was there, signing and autographing his book and taking pictures. But I've known Juice. So my father did a song with Nancy Wilson,
Okay.
"Love Like This,"
Uh-huh.
I believe it was,
Okay.
and it was written by Dawn Lewis, who was in A Different World, the
Okay.
Cosby spinoff.
Uh-huh.
And so I went with my father to the studio, and I'm hanging with him and Nancy Wilson and Dawn, and they're, recording the song. And in comes the Juice. In comes the Juice,
Wow.
in a full length fur coat, talking the way he talks.
Uh-huh.
It was just, So when I saw him, I was like, "Oh, what's up, Joe?" He's like, "Hey, man."
That's
It's
great.
good to see him. It's good to see him.
I think you froze up here on us, but we have managed to keep your audio that whole time. So
Well,
try a quick restart, or whatever it is that you reset, and then I'm gonna pick another picture. By the time you get back, I'm gonna be talking about somebody here that we're looking at. This is a lot of fun here, catching up with Grover. I hope you guys are enjoying it, everybody here, and if you're catching it on the replay, thank you. Leave me a little thumbs up and let Grover know that you've been enjoying his walk through memory lanes and telling us what it was like moving from a musical family and the environment and that transition into this tech industry that we have going on. I mean, it's not for everybody. The tech world isn't for everybody, and you're back. And I think we've lost you. I think no, there you are again. No, wait, yep, there we go. Okay. So I was just saying, that the tech world isn't for everybody. You end up in different crazy situations. Here you are, an outside gig. You look a little elevated. Are you up in a booth here or something?
no, I was on stage. That was a Tribe Called Quest gig.
Oh yeah.
I gotta say what's up to Rebecca Foster, Ujima Productions.
Uh-huh.
Rebecca got wind of me through other guys that work for her that I've been on gigs with, and she started calling me for some things.
Okay.
And, I got to mix monitors for Tribe Called Quest, and so that was one of the first gigs I did for them. It was an outdoor event, I think, at some park, and it was in New York City. I remember that it was an outdoor, like, free gig or something, and that's when that. So Rebecca, her company had a production contracts with 50 Cent, Busta Rhymes, Naughty by Nature, Tribe Called Quest, and then Q-Tip when he went solo. There were a group of us that she had acquired. Different guys had been working for her, and she had finally gotten this team together of crew guys: Maynard Snyder, Divine Davey, Shaheed Muhammad, a couple other folks, Jim Feeney, and we started calling ourselves Ice Cold Bodies, which we took off the name of a truck in was it New Zealand or Australia that it was an ice truck. Not an ice truck. It was a truck that took bodies to the morgue.
Oh my!
It said Ice Cold Bodies.
Oh, nice.
Truck. So we turned that into our crew or whatever. But
That's pretty gangster when you get down to.
Yeah. So now you got like 8-9 guys just all fitting in different gigs, like plugging here, plugging there, and Rebecca. I got to thank Rebecca. She put me deep on many occasions. So shout out to her.
That's very cool. Yeah. How long did you end up running with Tribe? Because they were, to me, one of my favorite acts of the night.
Yes. So it was like on and off for from 2008 to what, 2 years ago?
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. And
okay.
Yeah, she had those gigs, and she's with Lauryn Hill, which I did for a short time.
Right. That's right.
But yeah, it was and we had, there was a crew. It reminded me of the crew that my father had.
Right.
Everybody was just tight. Everybody was cool. When we show up to a venue, everybody went and did their job. Nobody, said to anyone else, "Hey, you got to do this. You got to do that." We all did our job individually, and collectively, we had a lot of success.
That's cool. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of running around in different crews, intermingling, did you take this picture?
I think my mother might have taken it. I'm not
Okay,
sure. But so my
that's
father
great.
was on tour, and we were in Detroit. And Detroit has the theater where we were playing. It's like the Fox Theater. And then down the street, there's this place called Clubland, I think it was, or something like that. It was like, it was like it was like where all the big rock bands played as they were coming through. And Marty Garcia had had an in-ear system out for his drummer at the time. And this is Let Love Rule tour.
Okay.
So Marty goes down to do some work to the drummer's in-ear situation. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm in town. I'm up the street working with Grover. We got a show at the Fox." He's like, "Man, well, tell him to come down. Come sit in." So Marty,
Oh yeah, sit in. Nice.
yeah, we should sit in. So our show finished. That was the quickest loadout I think I've ever done. So we take a ride down the street. We go in. I'm standing at front of house. My pop's on stage, and he introduces him, brings him out, and he sings his soprano on "Let Love Rule."
Wow.
And it was chills, brother. It was so dope.
I bet, man. That's crazy, man. I mean, that's just like that's the kind of stuff that to think that moment happened just because of what happened during the course of the day.
Right.
And then the crowd that got to feel that night, that one time that would happen.
Right.
And in the tech world, those kind of moments we end up missing. They happen so quick, and you take them for granted.
Well, we miss them because we're the ones that have to make them happen last minute. Those changes, and
right?
Those changes usually involve us not being able to enjoy the fruit of that labor.
Right.
Seeing it. But yeah, it was that was one of many very memorable experiences.
I bet. I really bet. I bet it's. Man, I hope that we can open this world back up again, and you can get some more memorable experiences going on here.
I can't wait to go back to work. If anyone's watching, I do monitors in front of house. I don't lift, I can't lift anymore. I'm old.
Oh man,
I'm a finger pointer. That's it.
You and me both. This whole lifting thing is just messing me up. Oh, I mean, I'm sitting here like, Wednesday evening, I get to sit in a nice, comfortable chair, and chat with the buddy and just hang, and man, my back. The therapist that's been taking care of my knee is like, yeah, you really shouldn't pick up anything. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much impossible at this point, but I'll do my best, man. Thank you very much.
I got an email from my doctor today saying that I have degenerative disc failure in my lower back.
Lower, yeah. Don't pick up anything.
Pain management, whatever that's going to be, shots.
Yeah,
but
don't wish that on anybody.
I've been doing this, working in this industry since I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
My first job was working for Marty Garcia and Dave Taylor's company, Crystal Taylor, making cables and loading trucks with Keith Harewood.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, so it's been that long. My body is screwed. I'm jacked up.
Loading trucks will do it to you. It'll do it to you really quick. But then you get, you get like these kind of moments right here after you get done. That's a success smile right there, right?
That was a warm, sunny day in Orlando in December for the Funk Fest. So during COVID, I flew down to Orlando, where it is wide open. And Alex Moran again called me to do this Funk Fest, two-day events. I did monitors for, I think, everyone except Belle Biv DeVoe on the final day.
Yeah, they travel with the guy, right? They travel with the full. the
Yeah.
full setup.
But that was, first day of setup. We had just got the LEDs up, and it was the sun was shining after being in Philly all cold.
Uh,
So
yeah, so you're one of the lucky ones who have actually managed to secure at least one gig during that course of
and it was like I had been out of work so long. It was like, all right, now,
what is this knob to?
wait a minute. How does this console? Okay, it's a profile. I know how to work a profile. Questioning myself and asking questions to the other guys, like, hey man,
How do I get back to this page again?
where do I find the oscillator?
So you kind of here. Let's go. Let's do that. Let's do this. Okay. And while we kind of do this transition of conversation, I want to. We can use this question to kind of talk about it because you were around for the analog to digital transition, and like you were saying, you saw MIDI, the beginnings of the actual musicians being able to use that. Gear Junkies talking about stereo interface. I definitely like Persona stuff. And I like Focusrite for different reasons. Personas like for the simplicity of it, Focusrite for the quality of it.
Right.
Where do you kind of stand when it comes to digital? I mean, because there's this whole the convenience, but then there's the sound, and
I
some
think
people don't care one way or the other.
I mean, there's a lot of artists out here that still record to digital and then dump it to 2-inch,
Mm-hmm.
get that analog feel. They have emulators that are supposed to make it sound like tape, but there's nothing like that rich, and unfortunately there aren't a lot of 2-inch tape machines around anymore. But
Right.
it was a tough transition, because here I thought I'd learned everything about the analog world. And now I'm in once I transition to the digital world, it really makes you think about what it is you're doing more.
Right, because you can dig
Because,
a hole.
right. Because if you don't understand, I tell people this, and I've taught this in classes, there's three main things: gain structure, signal flow, and EQ. If you don't understand those three things, doesn't matter what console you're on, it doesn't matter what music you're mixing, it doesn't matter how many instruments or how many channels you have. If you don't understand those three things, because those three things exist in every single console, and if you don't get them almost perfect, you're going to have a rough day.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't understand the basics and
Right.
how to, and then when you get to where you're sitting there in analog, it's all right there in front of you. It's like a piano.
Right.
You got a sound, you got these, and they do it.
Right.
When you get to the digital world and you have to kind of find it by doing that and then this.
Right.
That's what you're talking about. And that's that hole that
Going through pages. Where's that page? Oh, wait, is it under this one?
the worst feeling in the world is as a musician is you're standing there and you're trying to get the guy on stage. Look at me. Stop looking, and that's what happened. Like there was like 2 years of like everybody going, I don't know what just
right.
like
Dude. Yeah.
and so but now you feel pretty comfortable dabbling in both worlds at this point. Do you ever long for the analog world?
I mean, if I'm with an act we're the only band playing or the opener's only got a few channels,
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. But when you have multiple bands sharing an analog desk, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore, especially not with the time constraints we're put under for production.
And I think the ratio for sound quality degradation or imprint or anything like that, I think that's come down to the point where it's negligible.
Yeah.
And we kind of get to that point where we were talking about before, whereas
I mean,
if you're a professional, you're going to make it work.
Yeah, either way, it's going to come out and you're going to do whatever you can to make it sound good. I mean, there's still some old school engineers out there that will ask for an analog console. Give me an H3056. Give me an XL4. Give me, there's still a couple guys. I worked with a guy on Kirk Franklin, and all he wanted was analog and the digital. Because the promoter, that's what they were paying for, and there were multiple acts. That's what they got, digital consoles. And he'd be like, "Come on, man, get me an H3000, get me some outboard gear, some DBX 160s, and SPX 990s." And I'm like, "Bro, no one has that anymore."
That's not the world. I mean, we can get it, but
we can get it, but
the cost, for one, the cost factor alone in sourcing it is what tends to be forgotten.
Right.
And I don't expect everybody watching to completely understand what we're talking about, but that move to go backwards now for people is so expensive. And like, unless you are that top tier act on the radio festival,
right,
as an engineer, you need to be ready to mix on almost anything these days, that gets put in front of you. Yeah. And I think that's when the world opens back up, that's going to be, that's going to stand out real quick to people, to the industry, like as to who goes back to work quickly and who doesn't. And that's a bit of a shame, because this is definitely going to be one of those moments that pushes analog stuff further and further out. Now that everybody's had a chance to sit at home and get digital and get Zoom and record a song and do what I'm doing, stream into YouTube and do all this, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we can do this. I can make a video on my own. I can do all this, and people can get that inflated ego. And it's like, we get right back to what we were talking about, the fine line between, is it that good of a thing?
Right.
Is it that good to be able to put all that power into one person's hand? Is it productive for them?
Right. Are they using the technology? Are they using the technology the right way for the application? You don't want to give somebody a Midas. What's that? You don't want to give them an XL8 when they can barely operate a Pro 2.
Yeah, let alone a Mackie.
Let alone a Midas Venice.
Yeah. Oh, there's still one of those left in this town, actually.
Of course there is.
Yeah, there still is. It's so now, if you don't mind me kind of getting back to your father's influence and some of the musical influence that kind of pushed you into all of this. Was there a point? I don't really know how to say kind of what I'm getting at for you. We talked about you breaking away, and saying, I'm going to California. I'm doing this on my own. Was there ever a point where maybe you had thought to yourself, I'm just going to pursue music? Or were there even points where you were mixing and you were kind of like, oh, man, I'd love to be drumming like that,
I was always interested in playing the bass. I think the bass is the most, I think the bass is all that. I never really interested in playing the sax, but bass and keys, I those are my favorites. Like I said, I was a geek, so my thing was programming drum machines,
right.
Editing samples and making samples, and I'd gotten really good at it at one point. I had a Lin 9000 fully blown out by Bruce Forat, and that was my everything. That was like I slept with that thing, like that was my baby. But I love all genres of music. I love all instruments. My father made sure that I was familiar with all styles of music. He had an incredible record collection, and I had a record player, in my bedroom, and I would listen to like the old Run DMC stuff and the Sugar Hill Gang and some of the disco and R&B songs that were out. And he's like, "Is that all you listen to?" I was like, "Well, that's all I like." He's like, "Well, have you heard this?" And I'd be like, "No." He'd be like, "I'll be right back." He'd go down to his library. He'd grab like 5 or 6 different albums. And he'd say, "Here, listen to these and tell me what you think." And it was really like,
right.
Chicago, the White Album, the Beatles, Roy Ayers, Led Zeppelin. And I'd be like, "How do you know about all this music?" Like, and I just,
He
I,
grew up in that and watched it all move too.
yeah, and I just, took in all these genres. Classic rock is one of my favorites. Like all that old stuff from the late '70s and '80s was that was my stuff. Of
We
course,
still get a little Skinner over in the wood shop going on.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then uh, hip hop, at that time was everything for me.
Yeah.
But that's 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 when that seed was planted in my head that I could take all these styles of music and put them together somehow. So
And did you get to work with your dad on that level then? Like on
uh,
the musical level, what did you did you guys interact that way?
yeah, so after I got out of recording engineering school, I went to the recording workshop in Chillicothe, Ohio. Um, I put together a home studio, and I would work on these beats and these ideas and these melodies or these loops or whatever. And I was working on something, and my pop came in. He was like, what's that? It's like, oh, just this little something thing I'm working on. It's like, oh, okay, let me. And he messed around with me for a little while. He added some key changes, some chord changes, and next thing I know, we're down at Jim Salomone's studio, and we're doing pre-production on it with Kirk Dowd, who was in the band but also played with pieces. It was a writer and producer, and Jim Salomone, and now we've got this R&B instrumental song, and he put it on the album, and the song it was
Oh,
the performance live of that song at that time. He got nominated for Best R&B Live Performance. So,
okay.
uh,
What for the Grammys? For a Grammy?
yeah, 1993 Grammys, Best R&B Instrumental Performance. And it was the same year that Miles died, and Miles won the Grammy that year. But to be nominated,
Yeah.
that song to be nominated, like the first real song that I had, input on and co-wrote and co-produced and, slaved over a hot console for a while. Like, I was, that was an amazing feeling to see that piece of paper that said, you know, this song has been nominated.
Dominated. Yeah, that's
Man,
ah,
it was pretty good feeling.
that's really something. It does look like you froze up, but we did manage to catch all that audio. So I didn't want to interrupt you and let you know.
Want
But
back out and come back in?
yeah, go for it.
Right.
Yeah, that man, that is incredible. I just can't imagine that. That blows my mind. That story right there just blew my mind. That is so cool to be as a person as me, a guy that sits here and I got loopers at my feet and all that kind of stuff. To hear him say how he you're to hear you just say how you are just kind of messing around because that's what I do. I just sit here and mess around with stuff. And sometimes something catches my own ear that I've done.
Right.
And I'm lucky if I can make that happen to me. And for you to be sitting there, having evolved musically, like I'm really glad I'm asking you these questions because I had no idea you had such a musical background, first off. Had no idea. Um, but to be coming from that place and then to have your dad come in and have him go like, oh man, like to have your dad go, that caught my ear, what you're doing there. What is that? What you got? I want a part of that. And then to turn around and have that piece of paper, that's something.
And the performances. So um, on the album, it was performed. The bass line was a bass synth, but
Okay.
the bass player in my father's band at the time was Lennar Brantley. Kern has played with everybody. He was recently during the Lady Gaga explosion. He was her MD.
Oh
So
wow. Okay. Huh.
Kern played with Mary J. Blige. He's a legend. And he was playing the bass in my father's band at that time, and just the way he would play that synth bass and have his electric bass on top of it. It was
Oh, that's cool.
chills, brother, chills.
That's
Kern, what's up, Kawa?
So where here I got. I'm going to run through another couple of picks here, and
Miller.
I've
toured
speaking of bass players, right?
Right. I've been touring with Marcus since 2012.
Wow. And where are you guys here in this show?
We're in St. Petersburg, Russia, in that picture.
Yeah, I was going to say that's definitely not Philly.
Yeah, we were the opening act for Santana at this rich Russian billionaire's birthday party. It was sick. I mean, the production was sick. The stage, it was crazy, and we were the opening act.
That's cool. It's amazing where music can take you.
Oh man, I'm so blessed and so grateful. I love to travel. I used to love going to Japan. I've been to Europe 20, 30 times. I've been just about to every country and continent there is. And it's all because of music. It's all because of my pop. It's all because of, the way I was raised and the people I've worked with, all the great people at Maryland Sound and Bob Goldstein and Alex Moran and Rebecca Foster and all these people who, took a chance on me despite my name. And, in some cases it worked out, some cases it didn't. But I'm just extremely grateful to for so many opportunities.
And it's always good to come back home too. After doing everything, it's great to come back home and just give a hug. Give a hug to mom and say, "There you
are." Yeah, she was the glue that held everything together. She was, I mentioned earlier, my mom and pop were business partners.
Right.
So not only was she mom cook me breakfast, mom pick out my clothes, but she was also Christine, picking out his outfits and helping him decide on the set list for shows and making sure he was dressed right and usually had the final word on anything that involved money. Like if you wanted to get paid, Christine was signing your check.
Well, then your dad was a smart man for knowing that the woman would be the one to take care of it, right? Yeah.
She ran a tight ship, but those experiencing the way my parents ran their business is kind of the way I was hoping to, when I do production on gigs, and I learned so much from them. I learned all the things you should do. And then when you get out there in a real world, well, not that wasn't the real world, but, then you see everything you're not supposed to do. And when you speak on it, that's not, it doesn't, no, wait, what are you doing? You should be doing this. Wait, wait, this is a Roach Motel. These are $29 a night hotel. Somebody's going to get scabies. Mom ran a tight ship. She's the bomb.com. There's stories about some of my Pop's band members, and when you're on tour, you bring a suitcase for clothes, and then you have your show clothes. And there were times some of the guys would put on some clothes that weren't necessarily going to work. She'd be like, no change.
That's good. There's a lot of bands that need that.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of bands I've seen that are like, man, you all need just a woman just to give you the once over before you get up on stage. Make sure you're looking all right.
They'd be like, you wearing? That's what you're wearing? No.
That's awesome. This is so funny. So just see, that's the family vibe too that I think that you can bring. When you see it, you can bring it. And if it's just what you've kind of come from. When you're in the tech world and when you're in that camp, you're moving from one camp to camp.
Right.
When you act family,
right,
you're taking in as family too.
Right.
And that's a
And that experience helped me transition over to working all these other gigs because you know I wasn't like shell shocked the first time, uh, or starstruck or whatever the first time I got a gig. Okay, you're going to be working for such and such, and we leave for Tokyo in a week. Okay,
right.
cool. Yeah, while it was exciting, it was like, it wasn't my first rodeo, so to speak, on many occasions. So I was already prepared for things that could go and would go wrong.
Right. Because you'd seen it as even as a just a bystander.
Yeah, yeah. So I think
Really?
it's kind of set me not ahead of the curve, well, a little ahead of the curve in certain situations, especially some of the, the neo soul acts that I started out with when that whole movement came through Philly. The Glenn Lewis, the Music Soul Child, the Flowetry. I worked with those acts and and tried to implement my experience and my knowing what my mom and dad taught me.
Mhm.
Uh, I use those, try to get her done.
Pass the lessons on too, and there's times where you have to also sit back and say they don't want to hear the lesson. Sometimes you can only help so much.
I didn't always want to hear the lesson either,
Oh yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I'm so, I'll never forget when I moved back from California. One of the first gigs I got was working for
Somebody's here.
somebody's at the door, working for Maryland Sound. Hold on.
Yep, yep. Oh, and dogs are the best. I love. No, I'm surprised my page isn't over here reacting to the barking even through my headphones. But we'll give Grover a minute here to do his personal stuff. Again, everybody, if you're here, thank you for hanging out and still being here. And if you're watching on the replay, thanks for being here. We'll probably end up wrapping this up pretty soon. I'm going to go ahead and throw a little music on so when he comes back, he knows that we're moving into the music in the background part of the show now.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem. I was just saying, just telling people watching and anybody that's in watching on the replay that we'll probably start wrapping up. I'm glad we were able to make this happen because this was first off, this was amazing time, and it was really funny. The 20 minutes leading into trying to get set up, I'm sitting here like, man, I don't know if this is going to happen, Grover. I can't even connect. And you're going, oh no, we're going to do it. And I'm going, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So I'm really glad we could do this.
Catching up with you and,
yeah,
seeing your ugly mug again.
Yeah, buddy. Yours too, man.
How's everybody down there in Weathersville?
We're doing good. We're keeping busy. I just hit my 19-year anniversary this week. I'm 19 years here on the street. It's and this is the past 9 weeks of catching up with all you guys and Galoon and everybody on these streams, and Gary has just reminded me of those years and beyond. And we're doing well. It's been a funky year, but we're doing well. Bob's got this place. He knows how to do it. He knows how to do it right, and we have all the people that we've been able, that we've held on to that have stayed. We're all still here, and it's been. We're looking forward to the openings. We're getting the message that Maryland is opening back up is a nice feeling.
Yeah, that Maryland Sound out that was the first time. It was the first time I wasn't working for a company and was like, do this. It was, here's the gear, figure it out, make it happen, mix the gig.
Do what you do.
Okay. Yeah, so I was really able to, branch out and get a lot of knowledge. So thank you, Bob. Shout out to Mickey Beck, Ryan Beck, you, Art Isaacs.
I've got to have Art. I've got to. He's been requested so many times, so I'm gonna talk to him and maybe I'll ask if he can be featured. He's so busy. Even through all of this, he's managed to stay busy, and that's
Galoon
stays for him. Yeah, Galoon. I mean, when you guys, I think we managed to chat the other night, And then all the memories started coming back from those couple of years, my first few years here, and you coming through and hearing your name for like a year before actually finally getting to meet you, and I guess, gosh, that would be one of my last questions is, did you feel the weight of your name? Did it weigh on you through this?
I mean, that's that could be a whole nother show, but
It absolutely could be. Is there a way to kind of wrap up our evening by
yeah, I mean,
giving us some insight on that?
you know, uh, growing up, it was always, you know, well, people made the name association because he was famous, more famous then, and and it started to get to, am I getting this job because of what my name is, or am I getting this job because of my abilities? And there were certain gigs and certain situations I really questioned, because my parents made sure that I was humble and
Yeah.
respectful, and and there were there were times I was like, I don't want this gig because of who he is.
Right.
I want this gig because I'm G3 and I can handle this opportunity, and you make the best of it, and so it's been tough. I mean, I've had a few people say, you don't need to work, your father take care of you. Nah, my pop and mom like, your ass out there and work.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that would say that to you clearly doesn't know who you are.
Right.
And then also would have just a different outlook.
Right. And, it's been a blessing and a curse. I can say that one of the pros is, all the touring I've done, I've run into a lot of the same promoters and production managers and folks around the country that, worked on a lot of my father's shows. And, they're always like, oh man, the memories they have of, working on those shows. And, it's just, it's like I said, it's been a blessing and a curse. Some guys are just like, you know, you got this gig because, all right, well, that may be the case. I'm here. I'm going to do my job. And if you don't like it, well, you don't like it.
Trolls will be trolls no matter where you go. Trolls will be trolls.
There's very few folks out there that I've worked with that I didn't get along with. And the ones that I didn't get along with, I'll just say I played my part in those unpleasant relationships.
Yeah, well, if they're going to come in with undue expectations and stir the fires and all of that, you may as well kick the coals yourself. So, because there's no pleasing some people.
Yeah.
I think is where it kind of comes down to, and hearing your answer and knowing that yes, being humble is the way. And that's how you get. I would think that would be the one of the only approaches to be able to get through something like that is to actually hit a point and be able to be self-introspective and say, hold on a second.
I mean, I was just telling this story the other day. There was, when I lived in LA and early on, I was doing a lot of R&B stuff and hip hop, and there was a private party at the Atlas Supper Club in Hollywood, and I was the house sound guy there. And it was a private party for Montel Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And Montel Jordan's wife was there. And I met her. She was handling the party, putting everything together. I introduced myself. Hi, my name's Grover. I'm the engineer and helping production today. Okay, cool. And then I guess my name was on a list or something. She said, Grover Washington, you Grover? I said, yeah, that's oh my God, oh wow, I can't wait to tell Montel. So Montel Jordan, a 6'8" brother that sings, at the time he comes in, he didn't believe me. He's like, you're not Grover's son. I didn't want to be like, yeah, man, you listen to me. But it was like, okay, bro. All right, whatever.
Yeah, that's what you can say. Yeah,
all
okay.
Right. Cool.
Whatever you say, man.
And there have been gigs I've been on that people have no clue until they hear me in a conversation, or someone says, hey man, you know who that is. And it's nice to be recognized and identified, especially with the legacy my father's left us. But I do what I do, and I think I do pretty well at it. I love my job. I love what I do. I love work. I used to love working with you and what was it? The inaugurations we did.
Oh man, yeah. You were saying you did two of them, right? You ran through two of them, yeah.
Did,
So
yeah, I did 2 Bush inaugurations.
God,
Yeah.
those days, I respect all the guys that run the inauguration stuff. It's not something that you take lightly, and the people that go in, and it's especially our guys that have come right out of Times Square and bump right over to the inauguration every 4th year.
I just remember Art being in the warehouse, just pulling his hair out, and getting on the job site, and he's still pulling his hair out.
Oh.
And then the show's halfway over, the inauguration half over, he's still pulling his hair
out. But it all happens, it all happened, and that's why I want to do these shows, and why I love sitting and talking. This was incredible. I mean, Grover, thank you. First off, thank you so much for taking this time.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. I'm really glad we got to. And I can't wait to watch it on the replay and listen back on some of the things you talked about, because this has been great, and I really hope that this world opens back up and that you get right back out there, that phone rings like right away for you. And I hope you get a tour that says, hey, we could use Maryland Sound, and you come and hang out with us. And
hey, that'd be great. I'd love to
do some prep. Yeah. Like you're saying, it's easy now that we just throw you the gear and you just go, okay, yeah, do it. I'll do it my way.
Come hang out with Bob.
Yep. He'd love to see you. That would be a good time, man.
All right, man.
All right, Grover. Thank you again. Thank you all, everybody that's hanging out here tonight. Leave a thumbs up on the way out the door. Let Grover know that you appreciated this evening.
Thank you, everyone, for checking this out. I appreciate you all. Thanks
all right, Grover,
for having me, man, and we'll talk soon.
You got it, buddy. Thank you, buddy. Take care, man.
You will.
All right. You got it. Stay safe.
You too.